Shut up and sit down.
All right, welcome to the pilot episode of The Heroes You Deserve. My name's Henry.
I'm Mike.
I'm Richard.
So we're going to be a vodcast of just pop culture, geeks, movie, comic books, you name it. And it's just a random thing and whatever we feel like, opinions back and forth, and what we, predict or feel about future casting, movie roles, TV shows, you name it. So it's a little hodgepodge of everything, right, guys?
That's accurate.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Right, I guess so.
I'm just working on my bass.
Sure. So the first, topic, and it's just because it's in the news right now, I guess let's just kind of start off with Deadpool. It's their third week in the #1 box office, and we all went together as a group for the premiere. So I guess let's start off with that. Mike, you are a Marvel fan, DC fan. What kind of?
I straddle the fence.
Okay.
We'll say.
Sure.
I'm not loyal to any particular brand. Any good writing, any good artwork is going to draw my eye. Big Red Capula fan. Love Mark Millar also. You see what the camp Richard's in. I'll give you a tight shot of that in post, just to shame you. I loved it. I thought the humor was great. It was on point, very irreverent as we expected from that character. Nothing really not to like. I mean, it wasn't high art, to be clear, but it was very entertaining.
But so as someone that is a non-comic book fan, I mean, would they still understand who or what the character is?
Oh yeah, you don't have to have any back knowledge on any of the characters because ultimately they weren't important. Things just happened. So you have your main character, obviously Deadpool. I mean, he's there, he's killing folks. He's cracking wise the whole time. You don't have to know anything about him to really grasp what's going on. Okay, he was a smartass before he got the treatment. He was a smartass afterwards, only albeit a bit more insane. So there really isn't a whole lot that you don't need a whole lot of meat, in that locker.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
I like the old meat lock. That's cool.
Yeah, meat locker.
Yo, Adrian.
Okay. All right, so we'll expand a little bit more on that. Rich, Marvel fan, DC fan, and I guess start off with what's your initial thoughts on Deadpool?
I'm a comic book fan. I know sometimes I skew DC, and I think I for what I want in a comic book story, DC tends to do a better job. But I'm still a huge fan of Daredevil. I'm a huge fan of Jessica Jones, and I just like those types of stories better. Even with the DC stuff, I'm not much onto the cosmic stories. I know a lot of people gave a lot of hate to Green Lantern in the Green Lantern movie, especially, which was part of the in-joking with Daredevil. The irony for me was that I thought Ryan Reynolds was the reason why Green Lantern wasn't very good. So I thought it was kind of funny that he was making fun of the movie. I think the OA stuff was good. Mark Strong as Sinestro was very good. There were some definitely good things that were in it, but the subject matter, just for me, it just wasn't my kind of thing. So, in the same thing with Marvel, I think Marvel's done a really good job with some movies. I thought Iron Man 1 was really, really good. But there was no MCU then. There wasn't this big old kind of thing back then.
It
was
launched the MCU.
But it wasn't what it is now.
flagship
I mean, this was Jon
movie.
Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. making a comic book movie. It wasn't Feige just kind of running the show. It was completely different. Yes, it started it off, but it's I don't know that.
Well, they took a chance because back then, non-comic people were not too familiar with Iron Man.
Correct. And which is interesting for me with the whole Deadpool situation because we know who Deadpool is. I mean, I'm not a comic reader recently, but I mean, I was reading comics when X-Force came out, and I remember him from that, but I never really read much of the Casey run or any of those runs, so I wasn't familiar with the whole him breaking the fourth wall. But I mean, breaking the fourth wall isn't something new. Bugs Bunny was doing it back in the 60s and the 70s. Bugs Bunny always talked to the screen, and it was funny. And so this idea that Deadpool is some kind of groundbreaking character, I mean, he's funny. But as I'm watching the movie, there were definitely a lot of inside jokes that an average movie person would not get.
Well, they weren't for them, to be
So,
fair.
and that's great. I think it was fan service, and I think the fans really liked it. because of that, and I think that they're making a lot of money because of repeat viewings. I don't know that they made new fans per se from the non-comic book community, but for those people that were looking for a story, I mean, even I've heard many critics who liked the movie, who liked it, but they liked it because they liked the character. And I will be the first person to say that Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. I think he's been playing Deadpool in Van Wilder. I think he was playing Deadpool in about 3 or 4 other movies. Sure. He's very good at it, and he's a natural in that role, and he's very likable, and it's fun to watch him, just his hijinks and all of those things. But if you look at the movie as a story, which many are not, there was not really much on there. Like you said, there was not very much meat in the locker at all. There was no explanation. I mean, I at least wanted some nods because I am familiar with his origin. Or, I mean, the earliest version of his origin. I don't know that if they've redone his origin. But
it's a bit retcon, I think.
I'm sure that they always seem to do that. But, I mean, like, I would have liked some reference to Weapon X. I would have liked some reference to who this shadowy group was. We never really knew who they were or why they were. We just knew that he was. We knew Ajax was a part of it. I was not familiar with Ajax until I saw the movie, so I just kind of went with it, and I think a lot of people in the audience were just going with it, but I thought we'd have some kind of... There was an interesting scene at the beginning of the movie where he's like this arms dealer, and he's like powerful, and he's doing these things, but there was never any explanation to who he was, other than he just wanted Deadpool back. You know, he wanted revenge on Deadpool, so he goes after Vanessa, and I'm like, I kind of wanted more from that. I guess I wanted to know more, and the movie just really didn't care about giving me that. The movie was just all about being irreverent and being funny, and that's awesome. I just think it was a lost opportunity. I didn't fail the movie. I didn't hate the movie. I just thought it was a lost opportunity. I thought this could have been a great movie because it got a lot of things right. It just had a huge hole.
What did it need?
The story. I mean, yes. Oh, well, we have the story. He has cancer, and Vanessa, and he has to save her. We already knew that from the trailer. And the irony here is people are criticizing other movies for giving away too much in the trailer. You've seen the trailer. We've all seen the trailer. What did we get from the movie that we didn't already know from the trailer, other than the jokes? We already knew he had cancer from the trailer. We already knew that that Ajax was gonna get the girl. Remember, I'm not a damsel in distress. We already knew the entire sequence at the highway was gonna happen. We already knew that he was gonna go after her and there was gonna be this big fight. So there was nothing new that was given to us that, it was just basically an extended trailer for me. But it's popular. And like I said, just because something is popular for me doesn't mean it's great. You alluded to the fact that it's not high art, and it wasn't, but I didn't hate it. Like I said, I gave it a 6.5 for me out of 10, which according to Rotten Tomatoes is still fresh. It's not a horrible movie. I just wished that it had given me more story, like story, not just the skeleton, like more story behind him, or more story behind Ajax, or more story behind the organization.
But you could definitely see the complaint if they did that, being that, okay, there wasn't enough Deadpool being Deadpool. I don't need, another origin story. I don't need to see Martha Wayne's,
you do for a character
falling to the ground for
you do for a character that a lot of people don't know, though. I mean, I understand we don't want to see another Batman origin. We don't want to see another Superman origin. I get that. But we kind of sort of needed a Deadpool origin, or at least a little bit more, or at least, I mean, it doesn't say much. Excuse me, it doesn't say anything about just mentioning Weapon X or mentioning that Ajax had a boss, because I'm assuming he was not the boss.
Well, do you want to marry that franchise to another that overtly, though?
Well, it's just...
If you want to have this be its own standalone property, then yeah, you really don't want it.
It just didn't feel like a whole story to me. It just felt like something was missing. It felt like bare bones storytelling.
Well, I'll grant you that, because it does feel like it was an extended preview for... would likely be a sequel. I mean, this thing made a ton of money.
But it was more of a love story than previous superhero movies. You think?
Well...
No, I mean, they're really...
in the loosest possible sense
they're
of the
really
term.
Focused on the relationship
they made
quite
that,
a bit.
They made that the impetus, I guess. But, I mean, he was a mercenary. We didn't... It's like...
I mean, he was the hooker with the heart of gold.
For example, if you look at a movie like John Wick, for example. John Wick didn't really tell us a whole lot. But it did. There were so many details, the coins and the rules and the Continental and the hotel. There were so many things that we knew there was a much bigger world underneath it with very little
That's actually a good point because it was very implicit as
Yes.
you went through the film without
Yes.
any like serious
And
exposition
Deadpool-
about like
exactly.
I'm the guy that runs this hotel
Yes.
where assassins live
Exactly.
and we agree not to kill each other because reasons.
And that's why one of the reasons, even though John Wick was also kind of, is it good, is it not good? I liked it, but I liked it because of that. I liked it because of this world building. I liked it because there was so many things underneath the surface that they alluded to or that they mentioned, and I'm like, I want to know more about this.
There's a mythology there.
Yes.
And the fact that we didn't get a whole lot of it makes me curious. I
Exactly.
agree completely.
And I think that Deadpool has so much mythology that they didn't give us any of it. It was just a straight up A to B to C to D story. And it was like, he knew Colossus. How did he know Colossus? I mean, are we just supposed to assume that, oh yeah, of course everybody knows Colossus? Or everybody knows, I mean, there was just kind of like, there was just a lost opportunity. And like I've said, if I'm going to grade a movie...
I think he was the cheapest of the properties.
No, but they could have at least mentioned why they knew each other as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they chose him or for whatever reason.
I mean,
I'm
they're
just saying...
referencing the previous relationship.
But they could have said, okay, did they ever come on and say if he was a mutant or not? Or was the therapy the reason why he got this healing factor?
Well, I mean, that whole sequence when they were trying to bring out his latent mutant gene if one was present. So I guess, I mean, while he wasn't a mutant in the truest sense, like, he didn't suddenly mutate, it was forced. But it seemed, at least, that the X-Men were attempting to reach out and pull him into the fold, so he's not, out in the world doing awful things.
I don't know. It's just for me, like I said, if I'm competing movies, comparing movies to like The Revenant, which I'm giving a 10, 6.5. I think I gave The Force Awakens a 7. I thought Force Awakens had a lot of problems too, but I mean, we're talking. I can't just. A lot of people do this. Well, for what it is, it was great. Well,
I mean, that's a fair assessment, though, because what you're doing is comparing a bucket of popcorn to Wagyu beef.
Okay, but there you go. I mean, it is just a bucket of popcorn.
Yeah, but sometimes it's buttery and yummy and you like it.
That's fine. But it doesn't mean that it's, because I think one of the criticisms that DC gets for their movies is that they're dark and brooding and serious. But I think it's not that they're going about it that way. They're just trying to tell a complete story. They're trying to.
That works for them.
And if it's no. But I'm saying they're trying to make an actual movie, and it's not so much like where there's actually stuff on the bone, where it's not just a popcorn flick. Like I'm a huge Michael Bay fan. I liked Pearl Harbor and I liked Armageddon. But and the first thing that I'm going to say is
for Transformers just
no
disavow all.
No, but I mean there is a sense of to me. To be fair, his best movie was for me Pain and Gain. I have not seen 13 Hours or Days or.
But in a world where The Rock exists, you would choose Pain and Gain.
I thought that was a great movie. But for him as a director,
it's a shit-tier movie.
But again, you're looking at them from the same. I cannot pick and choose how I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to just watch a movie the same way I watch all of the movies. Like I mean, let's say if I'm going to watch this one compared to Green Lantern, I'm watching both of them. He was much better suited for Deadpool than he was suited for Green Lantern because he's not Hal Jordan. Blake Lively is not Carol Ferris. I mean, not in any way, shape, or form. She looked like maybe her little sister or something. It was just so weirdly casted. And of course, you can't blame, I think it was Berlanti, wasn't it? Greg Berlanti, he of Arrow and The Flash, wasn't he the director of Green Arrow? Green Lantern? I think.
I'll have to
or Martin, no, it was Martin.
Yeah.
It was the guy that did the first Zorro. I can't remember his name. Martin, what's his name? They call him Martin. I don't know. We'll look it up right now. But he had. I think he wrote the script.
To have like a tablet or something. So for future episodes, we'll be on point with this fact checking business.
I know that Berlanti wrote the script. I know he did write the script, and I think the casting of Green Lantern was part of the problem. But if I'm going to watch those two movies side by side and say, okay, storytelling wise, I think maybe Green Lantern might have had a better story. I would not have gone with Parallax. But there's villains there that we don't really know from Green Lantern. We know Sinestro, and we don't know anything else. And what Deadpool did was forget about all that because it's going to just bog the movie down. Let's just we'll just show him having fun and doing crazy stuff. And that's fine. It worked. It was funny and people enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, we didn't really learn anything more about the character than what we already knew from the trailers. And I guess I just wanted more on something underneath. That was just, my thing. I didn't hate it at all. I'm just not in love with it. It was just, it for what it was, going back to that, for what it was, it did its job. It's making money, and we're going to see an X-Force movie, and that's great. I'm much more interested in that. I'm much more interested in Cable.
So,
All right, so we finished talking about Deadpool and how it's the number one R-rated comic book movie of all time. And so is that going to set a precedent to future horrible R-rated movies?
well, no. I think it's...
Well, here's the... Okay, yeah. I'm not going to say anything.
Well, I mean, you're already seeing the trend move towards that because you're seeing the director's cut of Batman v Superman has already gotten announced that will be R-rated.
But why restrict it to the DVD? Why not make it in
Because
theaters?
these are both sequences, from what I understand, that include a lot of violence, possibly Jason Todd sequence, possibly Killing Joke sequence, because it's rumored that Barbara Gordon is going to be in the movie. So there's a couple of violent sequences but the movie's already so long that it was just cut for time, and a lot of people are assuming that it's going to be just extra violence. I don't see either anybody cussing or dropping F-bombs or calling anybody a cock gobbler or whatever.
Right,
That's a pity.
Right, but Rich, it's not about length. It's about how well you use it. I think the movie.
That's what she said.
Henry's around the latest one.
Well, I know.
All right.
Let's just let that hang in the room.
right,
I had to say it.
So Wolverine 3 has already been rumored to be R-rated, but I think that was already kind of the plan before Deadpool really achieved its success.
Are we not seeing X-Force first, or what are they doing?
No. Wolverine 3, I think, is going to be Old Man Logan, I believe.
That is the storyline they're reportedly going for, which is a hell of a choice.
It is, but they need to restrict themselves to characters in the X-Men universe.
Right, things they own the property for.
So you won't see Hawkman or Hulk, who are pivotal in the comic book.
Hawkeye and the Hulk are pretty much off limits. Hawkeye, I could see them making an exception for, because that actually is a really cool role. Doesn't hurt the character in any way.
It might actually make him cool.
Exactly, it might add to the mythology of.
Will they let him go?
Probably not. It won't be Jeremy Renner. I promise you that.
But you don't think
some
it's
old guy who kind of looks like Jeremy Renner?
you don't think it's too comic booky? I mean, to take all your established characters for a non-comic book person and project them in the future. Old man.
That's super hokey. But I mean, that was part of the charm of that particular series.
I have a problem with. It's like, why do we have to be using all of these seminal comic book stories as movies? I still have a problem with Civil War. I just think that there are a lot more stories to tell, especially if you're ramping up to Infinity Gauntlet, which is where Marvel's going, than to have Civil War which only is going to involve 10 characters total, none of them being the major characters that were involved in the comic. I mean, it's cool that they're doing it, but a lot of people who know the story know that they're doing it a disservice, and they're excited about it anyway. Why? Why waste that story? You're already building up to Infinity Gauntlet. Why make this a Captain America story? I already have a lot of problems with Winter Soldier, and I know people go, "Oh, Winter Soldier is the best Captain America movie. Winter Soldier is the best Marvel movie."
Wait,
Winter Soldier was
a Shield movie.
Is a Shield movie.
I knew that
I'll
was
close
coming.
in on that. Yeah, but
And we all read the comic. Those of us that read the comic, I actually have when Brubaker took over for Captain America and introduced us to the Winter Soldier. I don't remember it being the Hail Hydra winter, this Shield catastrophe. And when you're gonna have, and that's fine. At the end of the day, that's fine. You have Hydra destroying Shield, and all of these awful things are happening. Where are all the Avengers? You're gonna have a story so big that you're gonna saddle this with Captain America and then possibly Falcon, who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? You have Captain America and you have Black Widow, who for me was always a Daredevil character anyway, but that's whatever. So you have these two characters fighting against the entire Hydra in this Captain America Winter Soldier movie, and when Bucky shows up for maybe 15 minutes of the entire movie. Just call it Avengers 1.5, the Hail Hydra or something like that.
A buck and change.
A buck and change. I like that. That should have been, back in the day we had the X-Men 1.5,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, and zeros.
And now they're shoehorning in another major comic book story in Civil War. And it isn't even the Civil War. I mean, this story encompassed hundreds of Marvel characters. It was the entire Marvel universe.
Yes, in the entirety of the Marvel universe.
And now I'm supposed
right
to be excited. I'm supposed to be excited by looking at Black Panther facing off against Vision or whoever they're on. I don't even know what side they're on, and I don't even care.
Right,
because aren't we all gonna? They're all going to get back together. You know, this is the double standard. You know, that everybody hates. It's like, well, you know, the second trailer for Batman v Superman gave us the whole thing, and they showed the three fighting against. Well, everybody knows they're gonna get together. It's not a surprise. I mean, am I gonna honestly believe that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are never going to be friends again? Oh, there's going to be some kind of a twist ending. I pretty much have an idea what the twist ending's going to be, and I don't care anymore.
I've been watching several shows. Like Nerdist in particular laid out what was a big fan rumor was that they're going to kill off
somebody.
Tony Stark, perhaps.
As
a big turning the whole series on its ear.
Yeah, I mean, because Tony Stark costs money. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Downey's not going to keep making Marvel movies. I mean, he's done. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. You know, he's got to maintain the facial hair. You know, all that stuff.
Honestly, that's your worst problem. You're doing it right.
I don't think that they can afford Downey. I think he's priced himself out of the story, and they're going to kill him off. But
yeah, I haven't taken that angle. Now, I believe story-wise, it was a pretty ballsy move.
But who's the one that's supposed to die?
It's supposed to be Cap.
Right. So, I don't know. Like I said, it's fine. And
are we going to get some B-list character that nobody cares about? I mean, if they're going to go for a big death, it needs to be a big death.
Probably, because, I mean, Reed Richards and Doctor Strange were very instrumental in Civil War, too, and they obviously don't have rights to Richards, and they're barely getting limited use of Spider-Man, which was big in the comic book story as well.
Yeah, and the fact that we haven't seen a stitch of him on the trailer means that we're probably going to get a token cameo,
and that's what I'm saying.
Down, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, off I go.
And look, like I said, I like some Marvel movies. I don't understand why they're doing this. And if they can't give us the true Civil War, then give us another story. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of other stories they could have gone for Captain America. There's a bunch of other stories that they could have done. And I don't know why they felt they needed to give us spectacle after spectacle after spectacle. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. Look at Deadpool. Absolutely zero story. And it still made a ton of money, and it's still making a ton of money because it gave us the character, it gave us him having, doing his thing, give us Captain America doing his thing, give us, it's a Captain America 3 movie. It doesn't have to be an all-encompassing, it doesn't have to be that.
But that's what it's become. I mean, to be clear, I mean, that's...
Are they worried about another company, possibly? Is that what it is? Or do they just feel, I mean, look at what's coming down the road. Doctor Strange, which, everybody has in their pull list, I'm sure. I know you do, right? You're a big...
No.
I don't know anything about Doctor Strange. I don't know anything about his villains. I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I probably know more about John Constantine than I do about Doctor Strange.
I've seen the animated series... I'm sorry, the animated movie, to giving his origin, which is pretty cool. I mean, I tend to like the Marvel animated films in general. They pale compared to the DC ones. I'll grant you that, because they're pumping them out.
It's the characters.
I look forward to those so much.
Yeah,
I feel like they sneak up... The Marvel properties end up sneaking up on me, and then I kind of watch them like, oh, that was fun. But I anticipate the DC releases.
Oh, yeah.
But he tends to be like the grease that makes a story move in most Marvel properties. Like, he's never the primary focus of any given story, but he's always in the story kind of as a thread that's weaved throughout it. So I don't know that he ever needed a movie to himself, but I also feel like introducing him as a side character in another film would have felt kind of goofy and forced as well. I mean, how do you introduce a character like that randomly? Like
for me, I mean, we're talking about third string. We're talking about JV players here now. We're talking about third string, fourth string players here. I don't know that Black Panther can carry a movie. I don't know that Doctor Strange can carry a movie unless people are just going because they're banking on Benedict Cumberbatch. And that's it. And that's fine. That's fine. Whatever. But I mean, look, I'm not anti-Marvel at all because I think what they've done with Daredevil is amazing. Daredevil and Jessica Jones were absolutely amazing. And people are going to say, well, that's not fair. You're comparing apples to oranges. And Daredevil and Jessica Jones could have very easily had been rated R. Very easily had been rated R. They was pretty damn close to being rated R. I don't know that they dropped any F-bombs, but I mean, pretty much everything else.
But they were effing.
There was lots of effing, just no F-bombs. But the violence was intense. The sequences were intense. You know, the you know, those two. There's nothing right now for me on television that touches what Daredevil and Jessica Jones. And now they're saying that in Infinity Gauntlet, when it happens, or Infinity War, whatever they're calling it, that we're not going to even see we're not going to even see those characters. And if we do, it probably won't be Charlie Cox or Kristen Ritter or the characters that they're casting in the TV show.
Supposedly like 70 characters are going to be coming out.
But not those guys.
Right.
I mean, it's like, well, then what's the whole point of selling this cinematic universe that you all sold it? You sold it with Sam Jackson and all the end credits, and then you shoved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on us, which...
Well, it looks like now that, I mean, they're clearly drawing a line in the sand and saying...
It's not.
This is going to be
movie
the Netflix,
universe,
and then we'd have a cinematic universe.
But it wasn't sold like that. It was sold as this is a Marvel cinematic universe. And I think it's a disservice because of all of the properties that's on film right now, Daredevil and Jessica Jones were probably the best. I mean, again, they're third string. They're still. Well, I mean, I like Daredevil. It's long format, but they're the most fleshed out characters, obviously, because of
you got 13 episodes
of course.
to do it.
But their villains were much more interesting. Again,
we
had 13 episodes to do it.
Yeah, Kingpin and Kilgrave were incredible characters. That Kilgrave maybe not so much. He was a little bit. It was a bit of a caricature.
There was some depth to him, though.
But yeah, I attribute that to David Tennant's performance. Which was great, but again, a little ham-fisted as far as being overtly villainous.
Yeah,
And he tried to. Jessica Jones wasn't buying it.
Yeah. You're right. And like I said, but I think it worked with
poor you. You have to not use your powers and be horrible.
Yeah, I think it was but it played into the narrative that they were going for. I think it all just worked the way he played it. And the way she played it,
shit. You didn't want to like it.
Exactly, and I liked Fisk. I felt for him. I understood where he was coming from. I mean, he was going about it the wrong way, but there was a lot more layers to Fisk, even after only his first appearance. I mean, they didn't have to use that much. We didn't have to see so much of him, his backstory, to feel for him and his relationship with Vanessa and all of these things that were happening. And now we're getting, Elektra's appearance, and now we're getting the Punisher, and now we're getting the Hand, and all of these great elements from the comics from Daredevil. And I just think that the MCU, the movies, are not focusing too much on the smaller stories, because these are small stories. Wilson Fisk is a small story. Mm-hmm. It's not an all-encompassing, world-devouring story. Purple Man or Kilgrave is a small story that one person can handle. Now it has to be these spectacle team things where Captain America Civil War has to have every single person in the movie because the story, there isn't much there. And so they have to have this, it's just, I don't like
in the gaming world, this would be the difference between a AAA title like Call of Duty or FIFA or Madden versus an indie property. Where you're one man against a thing. If you stripped away, sometimes it's just you're doing it for art's sake, and like a game like Braid, for example, that was on the PlayStation Network. All about the visual elements. The game itself was fun to play. The mechanics were cool, but I mean, you're not going to be getting headshots and throwing grenades, and it's not stuff blowing up and showing you that you've gotten points and making your lizard brain
right.
jump for joy. It's since you're not playing to that same audience that's shelling out $60 for that game,
right.
They can take the time to make it a bit more artistic. I feel like the Netflix properties are that iteration of Marvel properties, where they're taking the time to really tell us a long story because we're going to binge watch it. They're doing that in mind. They know we're going to sit there for 13 hours or 12 and 3/4.
And the irony here is because you have 13 hours, you could actually theoretically give us a spectacle. You have the time. But they're choosing to tell us a small story. And could there have been a couple of filler episodes? Because those stories technically aren't that long. There could have been one or two here, one or two there.
I think the precedent's been set to where that would be like robbery in a Netflix property.
You're right.
If you got a filler episode on a Netflix property, then you're doing
it wrong. But maybe an episode that kind of slowed the pacing down a little bit or kind of, set us back a little bit. Mm. But again, I'm just saying if we have Captain America 3 down the road, why not give me a Captain America? We already know, aren't the villains like Crossbones and Baron Zemo or something like that? And yet they're focusing on the Civil War aspect of it. I mean, there are still villains in this.
I mean, I'm getting from the trailer that it looks like Crossbones, is a suicide bomber. then he's not really going to be in the film for
I don't
very
know.
long.
I don't know anything about him anyway, and I don't. It's like, oh, Crossbones is in it. I'm like,
So I don't think his iconic scene, which if none of you have, I guess we already spoiled that.
I don't know.
where he-
I know there's a lot of hype. It's like, oh, have you seen Crossbones? Look, Crossbones, and I was
Well,
like,
he
I don't know
plays a
anything.
pretty integral part in the story, albeit a very small one, but it's one of the milestones of the series. And he's directly responsible for it. And I'm being vague, even though I know
I'm
I
not.
spoiled this earlier.
I don't. I never read Civil War.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the story. I'm somewhat vaguely familiar with the skeleton of the story. I know it has to do with the New Warriors fighting a guy named somebody. And
See, now that's the way I would have wanted to watch, though.
Nitro.
That's what Nitro. They were fighting Nitro, and that's what I'm trying to say. Why waste this great story? Well, but then I also heard it wasn't that great of a story either. I heard it at the end. It didn't fulfill everything that it could have. I don't know.
It was front loaded.
Right.
The top of the story was awesome.
Right, and then
you
it
could
just
definitely see both sides of the story. But as you move forward,
yeah.
you hated Tony Stark and everything he stood for, and it became less about him wanting to do right and more about him just wanting to impose his will
Right.
and be right.
Right.
Than any actual maybe his heart was in the right place, but I didn't feel like.
So do you feel that this story can be told in a 2.5-hour movie?
No.
So then why
if
are they
it's just like,
so
dude,
why are they doing it?
I'm mad because you're defending the dude that we want to catch.
Which makes no sense. If you watch the
But
trailer,
dude, bro, I want you to not because he's my bra.
I was like,
I don't care about this.
but he's my friend. Well, so am I.
Well, I have powers.
They've
Let's
never
punch
ever
it out.
shown. They've never ever shown Tony Stark to be as close to Steve Rogers as Bucky was.
No,
They've never
there's
shown that in film.
animosity there that
They've
is
always
strong.
been at each other. I mean, not physically or to the point, but they've always kind of just. There's never been there's never been a
Been
friendship.
about that close to
Yeah.
from punching each other already.
And so, when he says that
In
line,
the cinematic universe.
Yes.
yeah, in the cinematic, when he says that line, it's like, so were we, and I'm like, no, they weren't.
Not even close.
Not even close to being friends. So it's just, look, I have nothing against the Russo brothers. Apparently now they're the de facto runners of the new universe now because Whedon is out, Favreau's out, everybody that ever did anything, Branagh's out, whoever. I don't know who's doing Ragnarok. Somebody else. I don't know who directed.
It won't be Brana again. That'd be cool though. Let's see Brana get another run.
Do we need another Thor movie? I mean, honestly, I don't know. I just think that.
I'm pretty Thor of watching them myself.
Ooh.
So we were just talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how it's trying or not trying to encompass.
No, it was. They came out and said, we're going to connect everything.
Okay.
And they gave us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they connected everything, and they gave us Sam Jackson connecting everything. And now they're kind of backtracking, and they've divided. Jeff Loeb is now, wasn't he running the TV arm of it? And Feige's running the film arm of it, and now they don't talk to each other.
It's church and state, and you can see it.
Yeah.
You can tell when a Marvel film is about to come out or about to drop because suddenly the show becomes focused on whatever that's going to happen.
Yes.
You're going to see that happen with Civil War, for better or worse.
Do you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I do.
And?
Okay, there are certain shows that I put in the time for and I feel like I need to just stick with, but watching them is like homework.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like I need to.
Just
and
so you
therefore
can.
It annoys me that I'm watching it, but I kind of have to.
Just so you're in the know.
I'm compelled to.
Are you enjoying it though?
Some episodes, yeah. I mark out. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but
Yeah.
it's always just that quick.
Yeah.
I'm never completely engrossed in the story. I don't like any of the characters except for maybe Fitz and Simmons, and they're not even. Agent Coulson.
He died. And have they ever satisfactorily explained
Yeah, they did,
why
actually.
the Avengers or anybody in the movies never talks about him anymore?
That kind of sticks in my craw, especially since Tony Stark made such a big point of shitting on Loki.
Yeah.
Because he killed him.
Yeah.
And then just like,
by
that's
the way.
a thing that happened. Moving on.
Yeah.
But is that not one of his character flaws?
I suppose. Yeah.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of laying the groundwork for the Inhumans movie.
Yeah, it looks like that's where they're going.
Okay, in the sense that they're dropping the name Inhumans. I don't expect that we're going to see Quake or Daisy or whatever her name is. I don't expect to see... What's her name? Daisy or...
Yes.
I don't think we're going to see her in the movie, but the name
Right.
Inhumans is being thrown out
Well, 'cause,
enough.
I mean, they don't have rights to mutants or the X-Men universe,
Right.
so they got to make their own mutants.
You know, I want to say that was probably one of my favorite storylines. You know, the casting of Kyle MacLachlan as Hyde was brilliant. Because I'll watch him in anything. I love
Right.
him in
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yes.
He was awesome in How I Met Your Mother.
Never saw it.
And Desperate Housewives.
Nah, didn't see that.
That's all.
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Anyway.
I don't watch a lot of network TV shows, to be fair. I mean, yeah, I've got my, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I know Supergirl's on as well.
CBS.
CBS, but again, I have a hard time fitting that into my media consumption.
Well, that's a good segue to talk about the DC shows and how it's going to integrate into the Marvel and the DC cinematic universe.
Well, DC came out from the get-go. Jeff Johns came out, and I mean, if you've ever been a comic book fan, you have probably read something that Jeff Johns wrote, and it was probably very good, and it was a favorite. His run on the Flash is probably still my favorite. A lot of the things that we're seeing now on the Flash TV show, which is very, very popular, comes from Jeff Johns, and he point blank said they're separate. They are not together. They're not going to ever be together. Stop asking. It's a done deal. And people were like, why? Marvel's doing it. It's so awesome. Look at how the show and the TV and the movies are connected. But are they really? We have... And the funny thing, the irony here is that Deadpool himself made fun of that very thing. Oh, let's just slap a Sam Jackson end credit scene and now they're connected.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's the worst possible way to connect anything. And then like the TV show... I gave Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a shot. I did, because I did like Iron Man 1. I did like Captain America 1. I kind of endured Avengers. But when I saw the TV show, I was like, this is horrible. Like, I was just bored out of my... I didn't care about any of the characters, like you said. I mean, I guess I cared about Skye because she's kind of cute to look at, but that's the wrong reason to...
Easy on the eyes.
Yeah, she's super easy on the eyes. And so that's the absolute wrong reason to... Because I know, I mean, people saying, oh, she's so annoying, kill her off, kill Ward off. Once you start talking about killing everybody off, which is what I basically heard from everybody on comments or whatever, except for Fitz and Simmons, was like, I mean, what's the point? I stopped after the Lady Sif appearance, which was the Thai.
Oh my god, some of the worst
Yeah,
acting
that was
I have
the-
ever
that
seen
was-
in my life.
that
She
was
couldn't
the-
settle on an accent.
Oh, but she could play an awesome Wonder Woman.
Bollocks.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not going to go back to Marvel, but what DC is doing is, so they have the Arrow. The Arrow starts off with Arrow, and then Flash, which some people are going to say that it's better than Arrow. I'm still have a soft spot for Arrow.
I feel like my consumption of those shows kind of makes them one unit.
Yeah, to me, it's you're watching one show in several parts. Like I'm watching Arrow on Tuesdays. I'm watching Arrow. I'm actually watching Arrow on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Consuming it like that kind of feels like Game of Thrones because I feel like I'm watching. With this episode's focused on the Lannisters and this episode's focused on the Starks. What's left of them anyway. Earmuffs, Henry.
But you see, here's an interesting thing, and I know you're not caught up on Supergirl yet, but I think Supergirl has made the most strides in just getting better. I think their original order was for 13 episodes, and they just aired episode 14, which was directed by Lexi Alexander, she of the Punisher Warzone movie, I think. She was originally...
Really underrated film.
Yeah.
I felt like it did what Deadpool did first.
Right.
But didn't get as much fan service.
Well, because it wasn't funny and it wasn't...
People were sick of seeing Punisher films that were bad and didn't even...
Yeah. So, again, for it being a network TV show and the budget that they have, I mean, they obviously have to spend that budget on lots of different things. And so some things may suffer. Whereas I think in Flash, for example, the only special effects is just him running. And I think they pretty much got that down so they can focus on other things. Whereas in Supergirl, you have to worry about her flying, you have to worry about her heat vision. There's a lot more other things that you have to worry about. And so some things may suffer a little bit, but not enough to take me out of the story.
I think what they did cleverly in the Flash series was they did a full body scan.
Oh yeah.
And they're using a strictly CG Barry Allen to do all of the effects, which means
you could just
you don't get the hokey. Oh, I'm running super fast.
Right.
With the background zipping past me.
Right.
I'm glad we're not seeing that show. I watched the 90s Flash. That's the show we
Although
got.
he did make a brief appearance in Legends of Tomorrow, but we'll get to that later. But what Supergirl did now with episode 14, which was the new episode from the last 7, I guess, because they renewed it up, or they extended it to 20 episodes. is now they're starting to just pump out these new kind of characters. You know, we were introduced to Siobhan Smythe, which, if you're not familiar with the Supergirl canon, is I guess maybe I shouldn't ruin it. But we have Indigo coming out. We have now
give me a reason to watch this show. So
the Flash. Well, Silver Banshee is one of the formidable villains of Supergirl lore. She's supposed to be making an appearance, and now we're also getting. We've also been told that the Flash will be coming over to National City. But the interesting thing that they did on this last episode was the bad guy was wearing a mask. It was Master Jailer, and he was Kryptonian, or he worked at the prison there that was in the Phantom Zone, and he was executing all of these criminals. And she made a comment about, something along the lines of, we're not in that city where you have to wear a mask. And a lot of people were speculating as to what she was referring to. Was she referring to Gotham City? Was she referring to Star City? Which city was she referring to?
Okay, I want to stop for a second here, very quickly, and maybe you can help me.
Yeah.
Because this is something I've wondered about for years.
Yeah.
Explain to me the geography of the DC universe and where these cities are meant to actually exist. Because I get the metropolis is most likely New York.
All right. But New York also exists.
But New York also exists,
correct.
Right? So where does that leave Gotham?
All right.
In relation to it. I mean, they all seem to be pretty closely clustered together.
Okay,
whatever they are.
Great way for me to transition into Batman v Superman. Okay. In Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder said that and I like the idea. I really, really do like the idea, because it wasn't supposed to be this way. And I don't know if they're going to change what they're doing as far as in the comics. But as far as in the movie universe, this is what they're doing. They are making Metropolis and Gotham City sister cities, very much like San Francisco and Oakland, where they're basically apart across each other, across a bay from each other, across a river from each other.
So whatever state those cities are in,
they're in the same state.
Okay.
So just imagine San Francisco and Oakland on the East Coast. Now, some people suspected that Boston-ish could have been one.
Like Philly and New York,
it could have been
maybe.
correct. Well, it could have been Boston and New York as far as Metropolis and Gotham City, but now they're much closer together, and I kind of like that idea, because there's an animosity, a friendly animosity, or a rivalry between San Francisco and Oakland. San Francisco is much more upscale, much more expensive,
Silicon Valley,
and Oakland is much more working class, much more the blue collar type of city, and you see those parallels in Metropolis and in Gotham City. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic, I think, that they're playing with. That Snyder, and I don't know if he made that decision. I don't know who made that decision. I'm also hearing reports now that Affleck made some substantial rewrites in the script, and that's always a good thing. He and Chris Terrio were making rewrites, so I'm expecting really good things from Batman v Superman, story-wise. But so you have those two cities now. If in the TV universe, they have not mentioned Gotham City in any of the shows, and they have mentioned Metropolis, because
they mentioned Bloodhaven.
They have mentioned Bloodhaven in Arrow.
No, they did mention in Heroes, Legends of Tomorrow. He said, I've seen Men of Steel
fall and Dark Knights Die, or something like that. Correct.
Something to that effect, yes.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
Like, wink, nudge,
so rewind back to what Jeff Johns said, and how no way, no how they're not going to be connected, but they are connected, and everybody knows they're connected, because if I don't care what anybody says, DC created the multiverse. If anybody has ever said anything about a multiverse, and I know Marvel has their own version, like the 616, or they have their own little number system. I'm not familiar.
Arcane that I can't be
I'm not familiar with it, but DC hangs their hat on multiverse. And yes, we have New 52 right now, but now there's like a rebirth coming in the comics, and there's some new stuff coming in June, I think.
Again.
But and that's fine. I mean, you got to sell books. It's hard to sell comics. It's hard to sell comics.
Yeah, I checked out when New 52 started.
Yeah, although Batman's run has been pretty good.
And then I read Blackest Night, and that was awesome.
Yeah, but that was before 52.
Was it?
Yeah, that led up to 52.
Okay, maybe I read them
in
that order chronologically.
Flashpoint led to New 52.
Yeah, but that was all of it was kind of ramping up.
Sure.
And that's all Jeff Johns. All of that. He's the architect of all that stuff. Love it or hate it, he's the architect. And so now, you're seeing them referencing things. Supergirl, who did she reference? Is there a Star City in that Earth? What Earth is it? You know, is it because, you know, people are saying, well, how are they going to bring in the Flash to Supergirl? They've never mentioned Superman before, and Superman does exist in that universe. They've mentioned Metropolis, they've mentioned Perry White, they've mentioned Lois Lane. Everybody has been mentioned in Supergirl, and
he texts her.
He texts her. Yeah, he texts her
Superman's
periodically.
a texter. LOL.
Yeah. Well, it's 2016. You know, it's a preferred method of.
You're thinking a Snapchatter?
Yeah, they're going to Snapchat, of course. And so now people are saying, okay, well, Barry's going to be jumping somehow, some way. He's going to get, go through a breach of some kind, even though they've all been closed. So what exactly is going to happen? How is he going to get to where Supergirl is? It's going to be very interesting to see how they do this. The episode's title is World's Finest. That is the episode's title for when Flash and Supergirl collide. I don't know the reason why, and it's going to be it could be a breach jump, it could be a time jump. I have no idea what's going on, but they can do this stuff. They've already brought in Constantine to Green Arrow. They've still reference him, even though he was only able to make that one episode appearance.
It's a pity because
it was a good episode.
It really was.
And Legends has made a reference to the old CBS Flash TV show, and that showed. And I'm sorry, it was the breach jump in the Flash that showed those images of Legion of superheroes. Also, the Legionnaire ring, the Legion ring. So there, now the big question is:
one DC show that hasn't been referenced
is Gotham?
No, Lucifer.
Please not.
No, you're right.
Lucifer is a Vertigo title.
I haven't been watching it. Again, there's way too much.
Diamond's iteration of Lucifer in the Sandman series, correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a bit. I'm a bit unfamiliar with that character.
But we're about to run out of time here, so if you want to wrap up.
Okay, so my bad.
Sure.
Can they connect the TV universe to the movie universe? Well, when you're looking at Batman v Superman, and this is a movie that I think everybody's waiting for, but some people just can't wait to see what's wrong with it. And
you get plenty of folks like that. They just go into a film not wanting at all to enjoy it, but just pick it apart. And that's a shame because, I look at your description of what Deadpool was.
Right.
And I see that because I feel like you went into it with your critic brain. Right. And not your...
But to be fair, I'm going to do the same thing with this movie. I do the same thing with every movie. I did not think Man of Steel was amazing. There definitely were some flaws. But I understood the direction. I understand what they were doing, and I understood that they were telling a story. And to me, that's all I care about. Tell me a good story. Like I said, for me, it's not Marvel or DC. I liked the story of Iron Man, even though the villain was kind of lame. I enjoyed the villain. I really enjoyed Captain America. I think the first Avenger, and a lot of people don't like that movie, is probably my favorite Marvel movie. And maybe Ant-Man is a second for me.
Ant-Man was awesome.
But for me, Captain America just did everything right. The first one. It did everything right. I think Joe Johnston was the director. He of The Rocketeer.
Yeah, it's a period piece.
I just enjoyed it, and whether it was a period piece or not, I just thought it did everything right. The story was good. It wasn't spectacle. It didn't have to be spectacle. It was just a good story, and so I graded it that way.
Well, it was real easy to care about Steve Rogers
exactly
right away because
there was
a scrappy, skinny guy who wouldn't back down.
But there was story. It wasn't just quip after quip or set piece after set piece. And I think that Man of Steel was that way too. Yes, there was some extremely just outrageous action sequences in Man of Steel. But when I saw Zod and Superman fighting, my absolute first thought was, this is what it should always look like when two gods are fighting. I mean, just mass destruction. Just absolute mass destruction. And people say, well, Superman would have done this, Superman would have done that. He's only barely been Superman and only just thrust into this role because of necessity. I don't think he knew exactly who Superman was at the time. I thought he was just trying to survive and trying to, do the best that he could without actually throwing his philosophies or his, moral compass or whatever. He was just trying to win. There was a lot of destruction, sure, and that's going to be addressed in this movie, and so I think this movie, and a lot of people are skeptical, but I think we're going to see a lot of how Superman, reacts to the critics.
He's going to be skeptical of the spectacle.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Thank you. So am I giving it too much of a benefit of the doubt? I think I know where it's going because of the problems that the first movie had. And there were some problems in the first movie. There were some pacing problems. There were some issue problems. I did not like how they handled Jonathan Kent. I was
Wonderfully cast, though, by the way.
great cast. And I mean, and I didn't even mind the sequences. You know, I was like, man, he's such a dick. You know, he's telling me like, you know, forget him. But think about the world we live in, or think at least about the world they were setting up. You know, this world now that's reacting to Superman. You know, either you have these, you know, they're treating him like a god, or they're hating him, or they're distrusting him, as Bruce is. I think from the previews that I've seen, this is the first true Batman we're seeing on film, where like he's a legitimate badass who looks like he's like the Batman from the comic books. I mean, Christian Bale is fine, but he always just kind of seemed like a dopey Bruce Wayne to me. Like I never thought that this was the Batman from the comics, you know. And now from what I'm seeing, and especially from this final trailer, that's Batman. I mean, love or hate Ben Affleck, that's Batman. And now his distrust of Kal-El and everything. I think that this Batman v Superman, and now the introduction of Wonder Woman, which I think everyone loves now. All of a sudden, people could care less about who she was cast. It looks amazing now, and her voice is awesome now.
The shield is.
It's everything. Leap, that scream, and that leap into the fire. It's just amazing stuff.
I don't know that I'm buying that.
It's Wonder Woman.
I'm gonna give it.
It's Wonder Woman. It was Wonder Woman. It is Wonder Woman. That's all I'm going to say about it.
And that means it's the end of our initial pilot episode of this vodcast, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to reintroduce everyone since this is our first time, and this way it'll give an opportunity to where we can follow you on social media. Mike?
You can follow me at Mikey Leal, linked right here. You can also look down in the description, and all of our stuff will be there too. Richard?
You can follow me on Twitter at Dicky_V.
And you can follow us at THYD Show at Twitter. And you can also like and subscribe us right there. So any future episodes, you will be informed and in the loop of any stuff that we got, new videos that we put out. So
do we want to hear comments about, you know, like talk about this, talk about that? We hate you, Dicky. Stop. We hate you. Get off of our video.
Sure. So send all hate mail to Richard, but feel free to comment below, and we will try to address any comments or suggestions or hate mail in future episodes. So thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time. Thank you. What? You're still here?
Go.